Heyo! Welcome everybody to the book reading. I'm reading the book Anatomy of a False Confession, The Interrogation and Conviction of Brendan Dassey by Michael Cicchini. We last left off where he was talking about Miranda and how to get around. Oh, excuse me, of course I yawned. Hello, Facebook user. Hello, Carol. About how to get around using the Miranda to basically interrogate somebody without let me see. Hey Ursula. Today without having to read someone their Miranda rights, because essentially if you're aware of what your Miranda rights are, then you may have the potential to not be interrogated. So that's kind of what he's saying. So they purposely on February 27th, when he was at the school, they did that intentionally. Question him at the school so that way they wouldn't have to read him his Miranda rights, because we learned in this book so far that to be able to negate reading your Miranda rights, you are A, not detained, and B, you are not in a like in a police station or back of a squad car or something like that. You are not being. All right, let me get it out of my system. I don't know. I know my Facebook, if you're watching from Facebook, I know on my Facebook I have subtitles. Maybe you can have subtitles on for you, Ursula, and then that way you could, if it's in your language. I don't know. Okay. So, we're on chapter 9, page 45. It said these are really short chapters, so I'm probably going to be reading 9, 10, and then, yeah. And then it starts on part 3. And then I might read 11. So we'll read 3 chapters today. Okay. Sorry. I don't know why. Like I said, as soon as I press live, I start yawning. I think it's because I just start talking more. I was working on printing out the food event stuff and setting up events for it, and after this I'm probably gonna lay down because I have work tonight, or I'm gonna try to get through and do the Be Brendan Brave stuff and get that stuff done. All right. You know what I need? I need coffee. I don't bring any coffee. Hold on. I'll be right. Hold on. Here.
You were appointed, was it on March 7th or March 8th?
March 7th.
March 7th, okay. Did you talk to Brendan on that day on March 7th?
I don't believe I did.
Okay. However, you did talk to the press, is that right?
Yeah, shortly after the appointment, the calls started rolling into the office.
Sure. I want to draw your attention to a news report from Channel 26 that says we have a 16-year-old who, while morally and legally responsible, was heavily influenced by someone that can only be described as something close to evil incarnate. Right?
That's what it says I said, but that wasn't me.
Okay. Is there anything about this statement that bothers you?
To say that we have a 16-year-old who's morally and legally responsible, that would in effect admit guilt, and that is something you should definitely not say.
Just for the record, Your Honor, Mr. Kaczynski testified that he did not make those comments, and this exhibit is being introduced as impeachment evidence to demonstrate that, in fact, Mr. Kaczynski made those comments.
The court will receive it.
Attorney Len Kaczynski immediately lashed out at Stephen Avery.
We have a 16-year-old who, while morally and legally responsible, was heavily influenced by someone that can only be described as something close to evil incarnate.
And the next day, you make the statement that if the confession is valid and admissible as evidence, it would almost certainly result in a conviction. Am I correct? Okay. You still have reviewed Brendan's statement, right?
No, that's correct.
First statement?
Correct.
All right. March 10th.
I was trying to stall, but it wasn't good enough. So here.
The man at the center of the hit documentary series Making a Murderer, who now has a celebrity in his corner, Kim Kardashian, joining the push for Wisconsin's governor to grant Brendan Dassey clemency. And ABC's Kana Whitworth joins us with more. Good morning, Kana.
Hey, Eva, good morning. So Brendan Dassey has spent more than 13 years in prison for a crime that his lawyers say he did not commit. And after his most recent appeal was denied, his legal team is going straight to Wisconsin's governor. And this morning, they have some new hope that Kim Kardashian's celebrity will help his plea for clemency.
To be honest with us, we already know it's okay.
This morning, the case against convicted murderer Brendan Dassey getting the attention of Kim Kardashian West. The media mogul is working towards taking the bar exam herself and advocating for prisoners, tweeting her support for Dassey, who was convicted in 2006 at the age of 16, alongside his uncle, Steve Avery, in connection to the murder of photographer Teresa Halbach. Brendan's case became a global sensation after being highlighted in the 2015 Netflix docuseries Making a Murderer.
There's no getting around it because we see the footage and we know that he didn't know anything about the crime. And we know anyone who knows him, as I do, knows that he's not capable of hurting a fly.
Kardashian West getting the attention of her 62 million Twitter followers after tweeting Dassey's handwritten plea to Wisconsin's governor.
Kim has an incredible platform and a powerful spotlight that she can shine on serious injustices like Brendan's case.
In the letter, Dassey asks the governor for a pardon, claiming his innocence, and writing wants to go home. Kardashian West also tweeting a link to the podcast by Jason Flom, Wrongful Conviction, in which Dassey breaks his silence for the first time since his sentencing.
Well, I just wanted it all over with, so I said whatever they wanted to hear, you know.
Brendan's defense team has filed petitions for clemency, arguing that his confession, a major factor in his conviction, was coerced and severely impacted by his low IQ.
We ask for very belated, but so desperately needed justice for this man.
In the past, Kardashian West successfully campaigned to pardon Alice Johnson, a Tennessee woman who was serving life without parole for a first-time non-violent drug conviction.
So it's hard to believe here. Dassey actually turns 30 this month. His lawyer is telling us that has said he will give Brendan's petition full and fair consideration.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking.
Okay. That was 3 years ago, dude. Sorry. Because he's almost 30. He is 33 now. Wait, he's turning 33. So that was almost 3 years ago when we started petitioning to Governor Evers. Isn't that crazy? Oh my God. Been too long. It's been absolutely too long, and that's what frustrates me the most. But anyway, I have my coffee. Yeah, I never hated Kim Kardashian, but I appreciate what she's been doing for people like Brendan and other people who are stuck in the system lately. So more power to her. So anyway, back to the book. Now that I am distracting y'all with a clip. So this is chapter 9, Negating Miranda, page 45. In theory, Dassey could have clammed up in the middle of the interrogation and invoked his constitutional right to stop answering questions. But in reality, suspects rarely do so. While 80% of suspects waive their rights, the more troubling statistic is this. Out of those 80% who do agree to talk, virtually none subsequently assert their rights during the interrogation. Dassey fell into this camp. He kept talking, or more accurately, he kept agreeing with his interrogator's statements, which earned him a cell in the juvenile detention facility and ultimately in a Wisconsin state prison. But why didn't Dassey and virtually every other suspect who initially agreed to talk to the police simply stop answering questions when things got too intense? When Wiegert and Fassbender kept pressuring Dassey to admit guilt, why didn't he simply say, "I want to stop the questioning and talk to a lawyer"? There are several reasons why Dassey didn't invoke this mid-interrogation right. By the time he was in hot water, Wiegert and Fassbender were well into the interrogation. Dassey, therefore, had probably long forgotten his Miranda rights. Even more likely, as explained in Chapter 8, he probably never understood them to begin with. And this fifth prong of the Miranda warning is particularly difficult to understand, even for suspects who are literal adults. In the previous discussed study of 29 real-life Wisconsin interrogations, this fifth prong had a Flesch-Nash readability grade level of 18.7. In other words, the fifth prong regarding the right to stop answering questions after the right to silence is initially waived is worded in such a way that even college-educated suspects may not fully understand their rights. Hopefully, Carol. Like I have Facebook opened, and I can see the subtitles for me. I don't know. So, okay. If you press on the screen where my live is, and then you'll see these 3 little dots right up in the corner. If you click those, I have the option of closing while it's doing the live. So hopefully, you guys, that helps them too. To make matters worse, this portion of Wiegert's Miranda warning was even more difficult to comprehend. In fact, it defined comprehension. It was self-contradictory and nonsensical. Here again is the relevant portion from February 27th, 2006 Miranda warning, when this was after the school, when he's being read in the Two River Police Station. You have the right to, this is word for word verbatim what he said to Brendan. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any questions and have him with you during questioning. We have no way of getting you a lawyer. If you wish to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you have the right to stop questions at any time until you talk to a lawyer. I'm going to go real quick, actually, because this has a number 4 next to it, so I want to see what the notes are. 8, 9. Interrogation of Brendan Dassey, Two Rivers Police Department, February 27, 2006. 484 at Stephen Avery Dorg. Okay, so basically what they're saying is that if we go to the Stephen Avery case files, which, okay, so foul play has the more updated Avery case files. I don't know who actually created this website. It is great. It's got all sorts of stuff, trial documents and everything in it, but they stopped updating it. So I don't know exactly who runs this, but you have all this evidence, records from Brendan Dassey's jury trial. You have all these exhibits and stuff. Let's see. Transcripts, records from Brendan's trial jury. State motion. Oh, they have some new stuff here. Order deny motion for withdrawal of counsel. There's the polygraph charts. Transcript hearing motion. Exhibit. Jail. I was wondering if they have the transcripts here in this particular area. There's the transcripts from the trial, but I want transcripts from they have oh, here we go. Police interview interrogation recordings. Here's all the recording. Here's the November. This one he was transcript report, November, February 27th. Here we go. Here's the one at the school transcript. So you could actually download it too and listen to it yourself. I might actually do that and make a video out of it just so you guys can hear it. It's not the best quality, but the transcripts are right here. All right. So the first thing Fassbender says, Mark's obviously laid down the tape recorder. We'd like to tape interview. Okay, not a problem with that. Anyway, God, I can't see blah blah blah. I don't see if he read the Miranda. All I see is Uyghur or Fassbender talking, and it was Uyghur that read. Let me check again with page 4. Oh, 4. Here it is. Page number 404. What did he say again? It was 484. I just want to also clarify, I'm not checking his work to make sure. I want to see 484. Let's see. So they talked to him for a little bit before they read him his Miranda rights. That's interesting, because if you look at the transcript, my thought was is that you're supposed to be read your Miranda, then you ask questions. But there's like a whole bunch of like pages here before of them talking before, like Fender's getting a speech like he won the Oscars, I'd like to think, and then there's like paragraphs and paragraphs for each. Yeah, see, 484. Unless this was in school and I'm just misunderstanding what I clicked here. Well, it says March 1st, 2006. This wasn't March. I didn't click the March 1st. See, I'm confused now. I'm confusion. All right. Anyway. Let's see. I'll have to later. I'll have to do this in a little bit and I'll post it in the group or something. All is of Brendan were recorded except for one most of us had known about. The one November 6th was audio only with the annoying four-way. Yes, that is true. That was November 6th was the one in the back of the police car. And then the one that we wished that we had was Foxtel, but apparently their recording device, quote unquote, broke. That's what they wrote in their notes of their interactions at Foxtel's. But that's where a lot of people feel like something pivotal happened. Like, I know Linda that Foxtel's is where Brendan was actually shown the movie Kiss the Girls, because he sees that that's where he got his story from, that he told the detectives was from Kiss the Girls, the book. And Linda has a theory that that's where they showed him that movie, and that's where he got the narrative of what happened to Teresa. Because there's one part in the March 1st interrogation where Uyghur says, Uyghur or Fassbender say, remember the video, or something like that to him, as like a hint to like think back to that. I don't know. It's a theory. The only people that know what happened that day are Brendan and Barb and Mark and Tom, and Brendan and Barb's never made a statement about Foxtails before. So and you can't ask them because Brendan's not allowed to talk about case stuff through phone calls or letters. So yeah. But I'm sure whatever happened there is duly noted by his lawyers, and they would use it if it was anything good to be used. But anyway, on the website, like I said, you can find all the stuff, all the transcripts to everything, and audio that's available. Yeah, the audio were the ones that yeah. So like I said, I know it's hard to watch and listen to because this is basically them framing a child for murder, an innocent child for murder, and it's not fun. But I do think that it's interesting, and I think that it's to understand what happened on March 1st. You have to see the other interviews that lead up to it because they're pretty telling. Brendan was also interviewed November 10th, and no recording exists. The only way we found out about this interview was from a narrative reporter. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even know that. November 10th. That's interesting. I did not. Do you have anything? Narrative report by. I'll look that up. Because I would love to read that narrative report. Is it in foul play, Ronald, or know where I could find it? But yeah, I'll go ahead and continue reading, and then I'll look up when. Okay. So Wiegert is telling Dassey that he has the right to stop answering questions until he can talk to the lawyer, that Wiegert has no way of getting him. Wiegert and Fassbender knew there was only an infinitesimally, I don't know what that word, infinitesimally small chance that the highly compliant learning disabled child would somehow remember the word stop answering questions, and on top of that, muster the courage to affirmatively invoke that right mid-interrogation. Nevertheless, they didn't want to take any chances, so right after the initial Miranda waiver, and again several times throughout the interrogation, they employed yet another Miranda-related trick. They simply negated the warnings they had just read to Dassey. The Miranda warning, despite all of its faults, does make it clear that the interrogators are working for the government and they are not acting on behalf of the suspect. If this warning has any effect at all, it would make the suspect less likely to talk. Wiegert and Fassbender therefore quickly negated it by repeatedly saying the opposite Dassey. Rather than accurately representing themselves as government agents, they frequently expressed concern for their target and routinely called him their buddy. Far more troubling, they assured Dassey they were acting not as cops but as his father figure. And they continually lied by promising over and over that they would stand by him, were on his side, and were in his corner. Like I said, Mark and I are not going to leave you high and dry. I got a very, very important appointment at 3 today. Well, I ain't leaving for the appointment until I'm sure you're taken care of. So go ahead and talk to us about what you saw in the fire. By consistently reminding Dassey that they were there to help them, Wiegert and Fassbender completely negated Miranda warnings that they were in fact his adversaries. They left no room for doubt in Dassey's mind. They repeated lies, let him believing that they were on his side. Similarly, despite its many flaws, another thing Miranda effectively does is to warn suspects that anything they can say can be used against them. Wiegert and Fassbender quickly negate this warning by once again telling Dassey that exact opposite. They state by telling him that his statements would not be used against him. They explain that they understood why he didn't want to talk. You were scared. You would be implicated in this, and you might get arrested and stuff like that. However, they assured him, from what I'm seeing, I'm thinking you're all right. Okay, you don't have to worry about things. More to the point, you have nothing to worry about. Then, to make their 180-degree turnabout complete, they also told Dassey that his statements would actually be used for him. We want to go back and tell people, Brendan told us what he knew. He wanted to be able to tell people that Brendan was honest. He's not like Steve. He's honest. He's a good guy. To remove any doubt about the benefits that would ensure from talking, they spelled it out for Dassey. And by talking with us, it's helping you, okay? They even got incredibly specific with their lies. Brendan, I'm going to ask you a difficult question, okay? Did you help Avery put that body in the fire? If you did, it's okay. By telling Dassey that they're not his adversaries, but rather his friends, and by telling him his statements would not be used against him, but rather to help him, Wiegert and Fassbender completely negated any impact the Miranda warning might have otherwise had on this child. This ensured that he would not invoke his rights mid-interrogation after he initially waived them. But let's for a moment imagine the high improbable what if Dassey had tried to stop answering questions after he had started talking? Would we Fassbender have honored his request? Probably not. To conclude our discussion of Miranda-related topic, we must leave Dassey's case and look at another Wisconsin case where a defendant attempted to stop the questioning and his mid-interrogation rights remain silent. Sorry. Where was I? The defendant told his interrogators in no uncertain terms, "You ain't listening to what I'm telling you. You don't want to hear what I'm saying. You want me to admit to something I didn't do, and I got nothing more to say to you. I'm done. This is over." Was this crystal clear invocation of mid-interrogation right to stop answering questions enough to stop the interrogation? Not by a long shot. The problem with the defendant's request, the Wisconsin court believed, is that while it might have been construed as an attempt to invoke the right to remain silent, it was also reasonable for the detectives to conclude that his statement was merely a fencing mechanism to get a better deal. This is an odd conclusion given the prosecutors, not the police, cut the plea deals, but it's just another example of how the police, prosecutors, and judges compare to take plain language, twist into whatever form will benefit the state. Given this, the odds that Dassey, a shy, highly compliant, mentally challenged child could have successfully evoked his right to remain silent are about the same as Wiegert and Fassbender making it through interrogation without lying to their suspect. I had a thought, now it's gone. Oh, I was just gonna say, and then on that note, it's probably very clear to unfortunately inform your children, your grandchildren, nieces and nephews that if ever they need to invoke their right to remain silent, they probably have to say it in flat out terms. I invoke my right to remain silent until I have a lawyer present. I'm invoking my Miranda rights. Just so that it could be clear later down the road in court, I guess. It's funny is that they can use language to indicate or beat around the bush or whatever, but we can't. You know, they're allowed to do that, the police officers and the detectives, but we can't do that. So, isn't that funny? Chapter 10, Getting to Know All About You. Wiegert and Fassbender had put in a lot of thought and effort up to this point. One thing they had worked very hard to do was convince Dassey that they were his friends and that they were there to help. Among numerous other examples, Fassbender said, "I'm your friend right now, but I gotta believe in you, and if I don't believe in you, I can't go to bat for you." This tactic actually served a dual purpose. It not only eliminated the risk that Dassey would invoke his right to remain silent mid-interrogation, but also helped jumpstart the substantive conversation. If Dassey believed that talking to his new friend was to his benefit because his friend would go to bat for him, then Dassey would be more likely to talk. And towards the same end, there's one more thing the interrogators wanted to do before unleashing their arsenal of interrogation tactics: build a rapport with Dassey. Rapport building is simply common sense. It's something we do in many different contexts. For example, if a person is interested in dating someone who is essentially a stranger, he or she does not simply walk up to that stranger and ask for a date. Rather, he or she will dramatically increase the odds of success by attempting to build a rapport. "Hello, how are you doing today? Where do you work? That's a great jacket you're wearing. Oh, you know John Jones? How's he doing?" And the same thing is true of investigators. They don't just sit a suspect down and start asking questions. Interrogator knows that the amount and quality of information he will be able to extract from the suspect is possibly correlated with the level of rapport he is first able to establish. More specifically, interrogators may use pre-Miranda conversations to build rapport, which is important to obtain a Miranda waiver. Similarity, interrogators also use report building post-Miranda to get the suspect comfortable and talk more freely. That is report building, often occurs after the suspect waives his Miranda rights and is therefore direct at eliciting a subsequent confession rather than an initial Miranda waiver. November 10th interviews. Morski told Brendan everything that he had confessed to. Everything he confessed about was fed to him during that interview. Oh, it's interesting. Like I said, I'll have to try to find that. The more astute among us can see through attempts at report building, whether they are coming from a would-be date or a government agent. Even so, many otherwise intelligent defendants have told me how surprised they were upon first learning they had been criminally charged. The reason the detectives who questioned them seemed like such a nice guy. In any case, the quiet and withdrawn Brendan Dassey most certainly was not sophisticated enough to recognize Uyghur and Fassbender's report building tactics, which started with feigned interest in Dassey's well-being and emotional state. Fassbender kicked off one of their interrogations by asking, "So how you doing, Brendan, since the last time we talked to you?" Uyghur also chimed in, "All right, how are you doing, buddy?" To really build trust, the interrogators would slip into psychologist mode. We're here more to maybe let you talk about how you've been feeling lately and stuff. Go ahead and tell us what's been bothering you. And as we saw in another chapter, playing the father figure doesn't hurt either. I'm a father that has a kid your age too. I want to be here for you. Other ways they built report was to show an interest in Dassey's family and friends. For example, Fassbender inquired about his family. "How's your mom doing?" He also asked about his friends. "Did Travis tell you I talked to him? He seems like a pretty cool kid." Not to be left out, Uyghur got in the mix. "Where does your girlfriend live? Do you talk to her on the internet or what?" When things bog down, the topic of the weather is always on standby. "The sky looks like it was going to snow a little bit today," Fassbender said, but Uyghur was more concerned about the freezing rain. "It's supposed to come in later. They're saying it's supposed to go up to 40-something today. And it helps if the investigator can actually get the suspects involved in small talk as well." Uyghur asked, you so you like snow? Or would you rather it warm up?" And sometimes it's a good idea to share a personal anecdote to make the interrogation seem more relatable or maybe even human. Uyghur disclosed, "I remember being your age, waiting for that snow day. That was a great thing." And for the report building, it's also okay to ask questions to which you already know the answer. Uyghur attempt to make a connection by asking, "Do you have a ride? Do you have to ride the school bus, or that's how you get to school, right?" And throw in a stray comment about local high school football or basketball game. "I wonder how bad Manesha got beat," and the occasional semi-intelligible question about whether Dassey had lunch. "You eat lunch at school normally, Is that them trying to like say in their accent? "You eat lunch at school normally, And you're off to the races. You have warmed up the suspect and built the appropriate level of rapport. It is now showtime. Let the interrogation begin." All right, so that was the end of part 2. And now we're going to start this is part 3, inside the interrogation room. Chapter 2? Wait. Oh, 11. I'm an idiot. Chapter 11. Like 1, that's 2, right? No, that's 11, dummy. All right. So this is the last chapter for today, and then we'll conclude our book reading today. Any questions so far, anybody? Nobody? Bueller? Okay, I'm just gonna keep reading then. So chapter 11, Scared Straight. In season 1 of the AMC's Better Call Saul, I love that show. An ambulance chasing lawyer named Jimmy wants to represent a man who is about to be charged with embezzlement. So Jimmy meets with the would-be client and his wife, Betsy, to discuss the terms of the potential representation. Betsy, however, was less than impressed. She wanted to retain a different lawyer. So shortly after this disastrous first meeting, Jimmy hatched a scheme to win her over. He recruited 2 brothers, men even shadier than he was, to stage an accident. One would get hit by Betsy when she was driving her car, the other would witness it. When Betsy gets out of the car to see if the man she hit was okay, the brother that was hit would continue to scam by faking an injury. The 2 brothers would then threaten her and extort her money from her. This would, of course, send Betsy into full-blown hysteria. But luckily from her, lawyer Jimmy would just happen to be passing by and would swoop in to save the day. Jimmy would play hardball with the 2 men, his co-conspirators, get them to back down, and impress Betsy with his toughness and legal acumen. And, of course, after he gets her out of his fabricated legal problem, she would want to hire him for her husband's real legal problem. The key to the entire scam, of course, is that Jimmy and his co-conspirators first have to scare the living daylights out of Betsy, thus creating something from which Jimmy can save her. Spoiler alert, Jimmy's plan was not successful, but unfortunately this cook scheme isn't such a worn-out movie trope. It's also a common police interrogation tactic, a tactic Uyghur and Fassbender used to great effect when putting the screws in their 16-year-old target. In interrogation parlance, this tactic is called maximization. In other words, the interrogator tries to scare and intimidate the suspect by making false claims about evidence and exaggerating the seriousness, offense, and the magnitude of the charges that the suspect could be facing. When the suspect is scared straight, the interrogator offers to save the suspect from the fictional problem the interrogator himself created. Uyghur and Fassbender's maximization ploy, if we were to be generous and connected to some objective reality, was arguably rooted in Dassey's earlier statement in the 2 marionette detectives. As explained in Chapter 4, one of the reasons Uyghur and Fassbender eventually targeted Dassey is that some of the things he had said to the marionette detectives just didn't seem to fit. And it's true. Dassey left the interrogators in a bit of an open in that earlier statement. For example, fearing that his uncle Stephen Avery might be wrongfully accused and convicted of another crime, Dassey first told the marionette detectives that he did not see Hall back when he got off his school bus on Halloween in 2005. He then admitted to seeing her, but insisted that she got in her truck and drove away from the Avery property as he was walking home. Arguably, parts of Dassey's statement to the marionette detectives could have been formed the basis for the obstructing an officer allegations. While the police are allowed to lie to us citizens without impunity, the result is not true and in fact can be a crime. Of course, see, it's okay for them to do it to us, but it's not okay for us to do it to them. Such bullshit. But then Uyghur and Fassbender isolated Dassey in their makeshift interrogation room at the high school on February 27, 2006. They began their maximization strategy by exaggerating the seriousness of the offense that Dassey could be facing. Instead of telling Dassey that he could be facing an instructing an officer charge based on the inconsistencies of his statement to the marionette detectives, Fassbender and Uyghur told him that he was looking at far more serious charges, specifically regarding Hallback's murder and the burning of her corpse. They told Dassey that he could potentially be facing charges for that. Obviously, nothing Dassey said to the marionette detectives could possibly have connected him to Hallback's murder, the burning of her corpse, or even covering up those crimes. If Dassey had said anything linking himself to those crimes in any way, the marionette detectives could have taken him straight straight to lockup instead of back home after their interrogation in 2005. Nevertheless, Wiegert and Fassbender exaggerated the potential charges. They managed to make the 16-year-old's inconsistent statements made the Marinette detectives, including his statement denying knowledge that was obviously intended to stop the questioning without having to rudely say, "I'm not answering your questions," and turn those statements into possible murder-related charges. But how could Wiegert and Fassbender have made such a false accusation against Dassey without any evidence? And how could such a threat even work? After all, there was about as much evidence against Dassey for murder as there was against Ken Kratz. In a word, none. Fortunately for Wiegert and Fassbender, they were trained in that maximization tactic involves not only exaggerating the potential criminal charges against the suspect, but also making false claims about evidence that supports their charges. For example, Dassey had told Wiegert and Fassbender that he was at the Avery's bonfire. He said Avery threw an old seat into the flames. This was the opening that Fassbender needed. "I gotta believe you did see something in the fire." You want to know why I believe that? Because Teresa's bones were intermingled in that seat. And the only way her bones were intermingled in that seat if she was put on that seat after the seat was placed on the fire. Obviously, that is not true. First, what does that even mean for something to be intermingled in a seat? And second, even assuming that Teresa's bones were intermingled in the seat, they could have become intermingled in numerous ways other than Dassey and Avery putting a corpse on top. Even assuming that Avery was guilty, the corpse could have been placed on the seat long after Dassey left the bonfire and went home. But this was just one form of evidence exaggeration deployed by Wiegert and Fassbender, who were, in this regard, able to get away with metaphorical murder. Because Dassey was a child and they were adult authority figures, they knew Dassey would believe whatever they told him. This allowed them to repeatedly exaggerate the strength of their case without even bother to make up any details. For example, they repeatedly told Dassey things like, "We've got a lot of information, there's no doubt about it, and the evidence speaks for itself." Dassey's interrogators also made statements like this: "We know you saw something, but you've tried to block it out. This is an especially effective strategy when the suspect is not only a child but also has a bad memory. And not only are children and persons with bad memories at greater risk of falsely confessing, but telling such a vulnerable suspect that the evidence proves that he saw something and that he is repressing the memory is particularly dangerous. Controlled studies have found that the presentation of manufactured evidence dramatically increases the likelihood that an individual will falsely confess and at times even internalize the blame for the act." In short, Wiegert and Fassbender were able to accomplish what the ambulance-chasing lawyer in Better Call Saul could not. They successfully scared the living daylights out of their suspect. They convinced Dassey that he is facing murder-related charges, when at worst he was looking at obstruction charge, and that the evidence against him was wrong. The hard work was done. Now all they had to do was rescue Dassey from the fake problem they had just concocted. And that, my friends, is it for today. Next chapter is chapter 12. So I'm going to stop here. Any questions? No? Nobody? I don't see any. So I'm going to assume there's none. All right. So, like I said, I'll be back Monday morning again to read more from this. Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, I'm going to be back Monday to read, I believe, chapter 12, 13, 14, and 15. I'll read those 4 next Monday. And then, yeah. I said the chapters are short, but the information is awesome in here. So I do appreciate you all for being here. Please, if you want to buy the book, find it on Amazon. Anatomy of a False Confession, Interrogation and Conviction of Brendan Dassey by Michael Cincinnati. It's a really great read so far. I've been really enjoying reading it. I'm going to make a video, I think, about that February 27th interview at the school and post it. So that way, if you all want to hear it, and if I haven't already, I honestly don't remember if I have a few of the interviews on the channel, but yeah, and just a heads up, I sent out a whole bunch of postcards a couple of days ago for the postcard campaign. If you are interested in receiving a postcard to send to Governor Evers or any other official in Wisconsin, asking them to look into Brendan's case and to help him. If you're in the UK, email ukpostcardsforbrendan@gmail.com, USA, and other areas like Canada, Mexico, anywhere else in the world. It's brendantalks89@gmail.com. Just email me or Rhonda your address and we'll mail those off to you guys. And we're hoping to get people to really start mailing to Mark Wiegert because Brendan's birthday is coming up, and Mark Wiegert is a sheriff at Calumet County Sheriff's Office, and we thought it would be really good to remind Mark Wiegert that he can retire, but we'll still always remember what he did to Brendan. Mark Wiegert and Tom Fassbender knew 100% what they were doing to Brendan, a 16-year-old scared child. They knew he was innocent. They still kept going at him, and they manipulated him into basically throwing his life away. So, yeah, and also, like I said to Governor Evers and anybody else, you guys want to do that. I just also made 2 new food events. One is for the popcorn event coming up for Brendan, and one is for the lasagna. So please consider joining in on those. If you're not already, please join our Facebook group, Brendan Talks. Link is in the description, so you can be a part of those things that we do for Brendan. I have to set up a costume party. Not costume party, but costume contest for Brendan too. He's going to judge, and you guys submit your costumes. There will be prizes from the merch store. So yeah, lots of fun things coming up for Brendan as well as us. Also, his birthday is coming up. This will be his 33rd year in prison. Not 33rd year. He'll be 33 years old, his 17th year in prison. So if you would like to send him a card, a birthday card, please, here's his mailing address. Please make sure you include your full name and address on the envelope and the letter. He will not receive the letter if you do not have those things included. Plus, he cannot write you back if you don't have those things included. He would love to write you back. And yeah, make sure if you send him a birthday card, no glitter, no perfume, no pop-outs, no voice things, single pile, or whatever they call it, card. He loves receiving letters and cards, so please consider doing that for him. And on that note, I am going to finish watching the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary I've been watching, or not documentary, but TV series. And I'm going to go back to sleep and get ready for work. But until then, I hope you all have a wonderful day and keep staying positive for Brendan, and let's keep doing what we're doing. Yep, Yep, I got one of my cards back because I forgot my name on the envelope. Yep. So yeah, you have to include that stuff on the letter, on the envelope. You're lucky you got it back, Carol. They've been known just to toss it. So yeah, you're lucky. They probably sent it back to you because they were like, well, you need the name, but you have the address. So, but you know, that's just how it goes, unfortunately. When this new system started, a lot of people, a lot of letters were thrown away. Brendan gets a notice every time he gets something that he can't have. And he's, I think at one point it was like 46 or something like that, notices that mail denied because of I think it's stupid things like no name, no return address, whatever. So, but luckily it hasn't been that bad lately. But, oh, you just sent me a letter or a thing. Yep, sender. Yep. Yeah, she just sent me a picture, and the reasons: the refuse, return to sender, sender first name, last name, inmate first name, last name, inmate number, inmate facility name. So those are the things that you need to have on your letter for him to get it, and the address. So like I said, make sure you get those things in there, so that way he can receive your letter. But yeah. Easy fix, right, Carol? Just throw your name on there and pop it back in there. You might have to re-envelope it, but yeah. But yeah, on that note, I'll see you all Wednesday, and stay safe, everybody, and do good out there. Let's keep doing good out there for Brendan.